Our last episode of Love at First Shot took us to the peaceful Texas Hill Country, where Chef Michael of Joshua Creek Ranch explained how to spoil your guests with meat from your hunts. Our final stop on this tasty tour brings us to rural Maine, where there's no shortage of stunning scenery, delicious wild game, or friendly company. I'm Natalie Foster, and this is Love at First Shot, sponsored by Smith Wesson. I'm here in beautiful Bethel, Maine, with the lovely Paula Lee, who happens to be an author of a few books, including her memoir, Deer Hunting in Paris. And Paula knows all about cooking your kill, so can you kind of start and tell a brief synopsis of your story and how you got into cooking wild game?
I've always been very interested in cooking wild meat, but there was a very long stretch there where I was vegetarian. When I stopped being vegetarian, again, I started to think very hard about why it is I had such negative reactions to the idea of eating meat. That pretty much led me to the desire to want to eat wild food. Every piece of meat comes with a story. And what I realized very quickly was that this was the essential difference between wild game versus what you get at the supermarket. And I think that's a real disconnect right now. The food culture in general, it's very superficial. Whereas really with the hunting culture, it's the absolute opposite. It is very, very deep. And one has to really get in there, in my case, literally with the knives, and start to really dig in to really understand what's going on.
Well, I love that. That's wonderful. And that's a perfect segue to transition us into heading over there to dig in with our knives and with our teeth. Shall we go ahead and do that, Paula?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. We're headed over to do a little cooking. Paula has invited us here to her lovely home, and today we're going to be focusing on cooking for a group of people. We always talk about wanting to use all of the animal, and Paula really does focus on that, and it's out of respect for the animal.
If you're going to be a hunter and you should eat your kill, but I really dislike the idea of choking it down out of a sense of obligation to eat your kill. So to really complete the picture, I think it's very important to make the meat taste as delicious as possible. So with tenderloin, that's actually really easy to do, but with cuts like the shoulder and the shanks, it is a little bit more complicated, but not because the meat is actually less tasty. It's just you need to think about it differently. People often say with venison it's very, very tough. Right? Braising gets rid of that problem.
So explain exactly what braising is.
Braising is a method of cooking which is on low heat, so no higher than 300. You put the meat in a steam bath. So all you need is a cookie tin, basically, and some heavy-duty tin foil with a little bit of moisture on the bottom of your pan. This is actually really two cuts. This is the shoulder here, and this is the shanks. So basically what I said to myself was, okay, how can I, again, maximize my meat and also limit my aggravation, and therefore I hit upon the braising it, the whole thing, and then making a stew, which is the classic thing to do. So
after removing any stray hairs and bone chips, we'll season the shoulder and then place it, still on the bone, in the oven to braise. The meat will need to stay in the oven for about 2 hours, turning after an hour or so to allow both sides to fully cook.
So basically what we have here are two shoulders, and these are female, which is better for eating typically, depending upon the age.
Does that make them more tender? Does it make them smaller? Tell me about that.
Smaller, more tender, fattier typically, depending on what time of the year. This is cooled off, which will make it just a tad. When it's warm, it's still easier to handle. But basically what you'll see is you can just pull it right apart.
Yeah.
See?
If you like to plan ahead, you can braise meat several days in advance and refrigerate it until needed. Or you can do it the day of. Okay, so we've taken all of the meat off the shoulders, we put it in this little bowl, and now what we're doing is adding some more ingredients to what will soon be our stew. So Paula, what have you done here?
That's correct. So I think stew gets a bad rap, like the shoulder does too, because it's sort of considered to be throw stuff together and you have your meal. This stew is actually quite delicious. And the base of it is caramelized onions. So these onions actually have been caramelizing for 2 days.
2 days?
Yes, low and slow, just like the meat. By the time you're finished caramelizing a bag of onions, this is what you get. It is like butter. All the flavors come out. So there's already a mixture of spices here, turmeric, some curry, and in this case also I added some pine nuts for some crunch and some flavor. So this will give it some depth. Part of the advantage of it is that once it's in there, you don't really have to pay a whole lot of attention to it. Then you can have it on hand, you can just stick it in the refrigerator, it keeps for quite a long time.
So yes, it takes a little time now, but it conserves time later in the week.
Right. And that's it. Basically, you just mix it together and then it just needs to sit for like 20 minutes and it will all have to kind of stew and do its stew thing.
Okay. Paula has invited some friends and family over to test the finished products. They must have tasted her cooking before because it didn't take much convincing to get them here.
We are very grateful. Amen.
Throughout our journey from field to fork, we've learned so much about the benefits of eating meat we've hunted ourselves. I've had the opportunity to create and deepen friendships that I trust will last for many years to come. And what I'm left with is an overall sense of deep satisfaction. Sure, in part because of the amazing food I've eaten. But while the flavors linger only for a moment or two, the scenery, the relationships, and the memories are what I'll always treasure. I hope to take what I've learned and pass it along to friends back home, and I hope you'll do the same. As you continue to master new and exciting field-to-fork dishes in the kitchen, you'll need some tools to make the meals the best they can be. Cabela's has you covered. This awesome cooler from Yeti is the perfect container to store everything you need for a barbecue, tailgating, or camping. With all that room, you'll be able to store your perfectly preserved vacuum-sealed meat, along with veggies to throw on the grill and anything else you need. My friends who own this cooler love it, and I'm sure you will too. Whether you're a seasoned field-to-fork chef like Julie or Paula, or a beginner like me, we'd love to hear your stories and all about your adventures over at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Love at First Shot, sponsored by Smith Wesson.